Alright, so in our last video we did a little backstory on Lynne and about how she had her brain injury. Today we're going to do another backstory, but instead it's on
Kruzer.
This guy. A little backstory. So let's get going. This is one of my favorite pictures of Lynne and Kruzer. In fact, it hangs in our living room. I thought it would be fitting this week to follow up the story about the backstory we had about Lynne with a backstory about Kruzer, the horse that Lynne rides almost every week up at the root farm. Lynne's had quite a backstory. You've learned about her how she got her brain injury and about her Gittleman syndrome. The story of Kruzer is very interesting. You see, Kruzer spent his early years as a high-end Western pleasure horse, showing at the national level. But at the age of 8, he was deemed unsafe by the current owner, and she was preparing to have him destroyed. And this woman, her name was Sophie, who by pure chance happened to be at Kruzer's stable that day, literally snatched him from the jaws of slaughter to give him another chance. She was convinced that his dangerous behavior was simply a case of a very sensitive horse meeting with harsh training methods. In return for a promise that the owner would never see him again, Sophie was given Kruzer's papers, which proved breeding and performance that valued in the thousands of dollars. When she brought him home to his new low-pressure and highly sociable farm life, he was a model of gentle cooperation and strong work ethic. But this wasn't the end of Kruzer's adventures. Oh no. One early spring morning, he didn't come home for breakfast, and he was discovered to have slipped down an icy embankment and impaled his chest on a sharp branch. A trail had to be cut through the deep underbrush just to get him out of the woods, where a trailer could be brought close enough to pick him up, and in the process he nearly bled to death, hemorrhaging at every step from a wound that went straight through his shoulder muscle into his body cavity. At the trailer, finally, with only an IV jug keeping him conscious, all debated whether to try to get him to surgery or end the ordeal right there by putting him out of his misery. The slim chance of saving Kruzer's life won out, and he rode to the vet clinic with 3 people supporting him in the trailer, holding the IV jug, and a surgeon standing by their destination. Kruzer had lost so much blood that he had no clotting factor, and following surgery he could not move a muscle without hemorrhaging. Once again, it was discussed whether the humane thing to do would be euthanasia. But the horse seemed to have in his eye some spark of an indomitable spirit to live. Once again, all agreed to give him a chance. Kruzer stood immobile for 2 weeks and received blood transfusions before being allowed to take a step or two towards his feeding and water buckets. Then over the course of 10 months, he was in a tie stall, a box stall, a small paddock, and finally a full pasture. At the end, Kruzer was galloping happily around the field, and the gaping wound in his chest had healed so perfectly that it was virtually unnoticeable. Over the course of that year, however, Sophie's life had moved on, and there was no longer a place in it for a pleasure horse. With the family's close ties to the root farm, it was decided that if anyone could preserve the story of this horse with incredible life spirit, it would be by such a program whose mission it was to help horses help people struggling also in challenging life situations. And that brings us to present day. And in 2015, Kruzer's life and Lynne's life came together. All right, so we know the backstory about Kruzer, and basically he's sort of on his third life now, right?
Something like that, yes.
Yeah, something like third life. And so now he's this is a very good life for him right now.
I'd say so.
Yeah. So tell me a little bit about what Kruzer does up here and what you discovered, and for being a therapy horse,
Okay. Kruzer is probably the horse here that does the widest variety of programs and services. He does the physical therapy with Mary Ellen. He's done vaulting, adaptive, non-adaptive lessons. I use him for every field trip or groundwork-based program. He's really good on cross ties, so he'll stand like a statue, and he's very interactive with the kids as well. He's very expressive and wants to engage with them, so he's a great role model to teach kids kind of a horse's behavior, their temperament, and what kind of characteristics we look for in the kind of horse with our programs. And the other really incredible thing about Kruzer is he's not only a role model for people, but also for the rest of the horses. And you can see he's got his best friend Doc here with him. He usually goes out in that far pasture with Monty and Apollo, the two horses that are farthest away. And anytime we try and implement a new training technique, whether it's using the mechanical or Hoyer lift, Kruzer is usually the first one we try anything on, because he's really I'd say most comfortable and confident, and is really willing to work with us and wants to be part of it. So we use him, the first time with it, and then with Doc in particular with the Hoyer lift, who's really hesitant. So we brought Kruzer over, and he kind of walked Doc through the steps.
Right, and this is his friend.
Absolute best friend here, yes. The two of them are pretty inseparable. Sometimes they have a bad case of separation anxiety if one's in the stall and one's outside, or one's in the arena and then the other's outside. So it's a great thing that they have such a strong bond. They just want to be together 24/7. And Doc wanted to be on the film today, so.
Yes, they come up together.
Yes.
And I liked that they both got themselves nice and groomed.
They were clean this morning, I promise. When I took their fly mask off,
this
and
is
then
what
they
horses do. They're having
immediately
fun.
dropped and rolled, so.
And it was raining this morning, so.
Yeah, but as you can see, they're extremely well behaved, and they'll stand like this for any kind of program.
Yeah.
And I think Doc has really modeled a lot of his behavior after Kruzer, spending so much time with him.
Exactly.
So Kruzer's really kind of the leader for all kind of new training techniques, and the horses as a whole tend to kind of follow Kruzer and his mannerisms, which is really amazing that he kind of sets the bar, a pretty high bar, I'd say, because he's really one in a million.
All right, so I understand Kruzer's been, nominated for an award?
It was last year, I believe, for the American Hippotherapy Association Horse of the Year. They have an annual conference like many national associations, and Mary Ellen submitted Kruzer's story, not only his backstory, which we've talked about a little bit already, but also kind of his work here at the Root Farm. And we had to submit basically a portfolio with all different photos of him. We had to do a photo shoot with him from different angles. I actually submitted one where he's rolling on the ground, but I don't know if they kept that. And just talking about his temperament and his willingness to work with people of all ages and abilities, and his huge capacity to empathize with people and really kind of carry their burden and their feelings. He's very in tune with how people are feeling that day. He has amazing intuition. I mean, Doc is pretty close too, I'd say, as a backup for Kruzer, but Kruzer really has a gift.
All right, so we've come inside now because it started raining as we were shooting out there. But so we decided to bring it in here, and Lynne's sitting in a chair because she had a nice long walk. We're tired.
Good
But
exercise, right?
this is Kruzer's stall here, and is that?
This is Doc's right next door.
Right next door.
Very strategic.
Yes, so they're like roommates, right? So tell us a little bit about this friendship that they have, or when did it start, and what did you know?
Okay, I think Doc came probably about 3 years ago, and usually when we introduce horses, Kruzer again is our go-to for introducing new horses to the herd. So Kruzer was probably the first horse that Doc met, and I believe it was in the outdoor arena behind us here, and we put them out there, and it was almost this instantaneous connection. They just mirrored each other's kind of the pose they were standing in, and just we knew it was going to be probably not as strong of a friendship as it is right now, but we knew, okay, they could go out together, they're going to do just fine. And then it turned into this really strong bond to the point where their stalls do have to be next to each other. In fact, if we put Kruzer on this side of the barn and Doc is on the other side of the barn, they will actually vocalize and cry out for each other because they are so comfortable and content being directly next door where they can go nose to nose like this. And they like to be the greeters of the barn, so that's why Doc has the first stall here so he can see the door, and then Kruzer is his buddy right there, so they kind of are the first faces you see when you come into the barn.
I know when we leave, Doc always vocalizes.
Like I said, every introduction, passing, comment, greeting, Doc has to be a part of, so that's why we can't really ever move these two stalls. Watch out.
Now, Alexis is petting Chance. This is Chance here, by the way. Another star of the Root Farm.
One of the original Root Farm horses, along with Kruzer. So he's actually waiting to go outside with Kruzer right now, a little impatiently.
Now, do you have another Kruzer story?
Yeah, actually, I talked a lot earlier about how I use him for field trips and one-time visits to the Root Farm. And even though people come and they just, maybe are here for an hour or 2 hours, it's amazing to see that connection that Kruzer has with people in such a short time frame. When people come to ride every single week, they have obviously more time to build that rapport. But we had a group of, I forget what grade of students come. We were in the indoor arena and we just did a quick grooming demonstration, parts of the horse, and I used Kruzer. Again, he's my go-to for all these groundwork-based programs. And I thought nothing of it. Every kid came up, they said hi to Kruzer. I was just holding him on a lead line, they pet him and maybe talked to him. Nothing out of the ordinary at the moment. And then the last kid came up and he walked right up to me and asked me, I think what color Kruzer was or how old he was, something very simple. And again, I thought nothing of it. And I looked over across the arena and his teachers were crying. And I thought, oh, that's interesting. I made a point to just touch base with them afterwards. And so I went up to them and I said, is everything okay? I noticed when he came up to Kruzer, you were crying. Is he allergic? Or I don't know, I thought the worst immediately. And they said, no, actually, he hasn't spoken to any of his classmates or teachers for the majority of the school year. He's unable to go up and facilitate communication, and he doesn't ever usually take that first step towards initiating it, and he walked right up to the horse and asked him a question. And their minds were just so blown that he's around people all the time and that connection hasn't happened, and he walked up to a horse and just immediately felt he could just open up and share something. And like I said, that is something that we see all the time with the horses here, especially Kruzer. And it was a one-time meeting, so it's just really incredible those little moments that happen. And then even seeing riders like Lynne, who are here every single week and continue to really deepen that bond with the horse. And it's just really, these things happen all the time with Kruzer, and I'm sure there's more stories. I can't think of them at the moment, but that's one of the ones that I think sticks out the most in my mind.
For more information about the Root Farms Equine Program, visit their website or give them a call. They'll accommodate people with all sorts of disabilities or people without disabilities if you just want to learn to ride.
See you next time on The Lynne Life.